Hello everyone, Ben here and welcome to this week's feature race, the GT Showdown in Imola. Two classes of GT cars from the early 2000s are on the grid and we're in the GTR2 class in the Yokohama liveried BMW. As is now usual for this feature race, we've got all the action from lights to flag. We had a solid qualifying in 6th place and it's a cracking race full of action. Before we get going, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any races we've got coming up, and if you haven't seen them yet, check out some of our other feature races at Daytona and the Red Bull Ring 2. Also, once you're done with this race, go and check out Zero to Hero's channel. He's another RaceRoom YouTuber that puts out great content from the ranked servers. There's a link to his channel in the description. Right then, let's go to the grid. Right then, here we are on the grid, waiting for the lights. We're starting in 6th. Of a 23 strong GTR2 field with 4 GTR1 runners, and we're underway and we've made a fantastic start. We're already up into 4th place and we're alongside the car to our left hand side there, and we're up into 3rd. So what a brilliant start. We've made 3 places off the line and we're going to cover off the inside line here now. We don't have any cars alongside us, so we're going to hold 3rd position into the first sequence of corners. We're now around through that chicane and we're closing up to the car in front of us, but I'm actually going to just think better of that. There's not really room to go side by side safely through this second chicane, so we're going to just hold station for now and look to consolidate 3rd place as the 2 cars up ahead of us go side by side through the hairpin as they're jostling for position. It's worth saying that the top 2 in qualifying were quite a bit faster than the rest of the field, so I'm not really expecting that I'm going to be able to challenge for the lead of this race unless they come together or there's some sort of issue up top. But the rest of us in sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th were really close together in qualifying, so I'm expecting a tight race essentially for the final podium position, and we've made the best start we possibly could to get ourselves into prime position to challenge for it. We're through now the very tight chicane with the dangerous curbs on both sections of that corner. We get through cleanly here on lap 1 and we've got about a half a second gap to the car behind, but already the top 2 have stretched to around a second clear of us as they look to fight one another for the lead of this race. The GTR1 cars will probably be about 3, 4, 5 seconds a lap quicker than us. We're not going to be in a position where they catch up to us through this 15-minute ranked session, but they will probably make up significant ground on the back markers of the GTR2 field, and they may end up having to lap some of them as they go. But we're into lap 2 now. We're just holding steady in 3rd place. There's a couple of cars behind us that are looking like they may be our sort of closest challengers in this race session so far, but you never know what's going to happen up ahead of us. They are fighting for position quite closely, and yes, they're a second and a half ahead of us, but if they slow each other down, or if there's contact made, or if there's any incidents that take place, we need to be ready to take advantage of that over the course of this race distance. So I'm in the BMW GTR2. This is not a class of car I've raced before this week, and I have to say it's a huge amount of fun. The car itself feels like a more raw and alive GT3 car, I think is how I would probably characterize it. It is stable, the BMW, but if you get too heavy on the brakes, then you will lock up and potentially spin the car. I'm running the stock setup with the car here. I think in retrospect that's probably a bit safe. You'll notice as we go through the race that other cars have got a better straight line speed than we do. But we're coming under pressure here as we come towards the end of the lap, and look at that, I get on the brakes too heavy, trying to just run too deep into the corner. I nearly lose the car, but I catch the slide. We get a little tap from behind, but that's our fault. It's not the car behind's fault because we ran too slow through that corner, and we've put ourselves under all kinds of pressure here as we come round to the end of lap 2. We've got 2 cars now all over the back of us, both left and right. Which is going to make the entry into this first corner really, really difficult. We've got a car alongside us now. We're going to give him all the space he needs because I don't want to come together this early in the race. He makes that stick really, really well. He gets a little bit squirmy on the exit of the corner, but nevertheless, I have to say a really good pass because I didn't get off the kind of gas early or get on the brakes early. I just tried to hold to the racing line and make him do the work really down the inside of the corner, but he did it, and he did it really well. He didn't squeeze us off the track. There was no contact, but unfortunately, because of that mistake towards the end of lap 2, we've already ceded that podium position. So we've got our work cut out now to just stick to the back of the guy ahead and see if we can't find our way back past and up into that third place again. But for the time being, I've got bigger problems because the driver behind us, Broca, is again all over our rear wing as I'm just trying to get a bit of consistency back to our driving here. A little bit rattled by that mistake at the end of the previous lap, and I just need to settle down and maintain some solid pace really before I think about getting that spot back from the driver ahead, and make sure that we don't lose another place here to the driver behind. You'll notice there is a car just up ahead in yellow of the guy directly above us on track. He's actually now a back marker. He's had a really big accident, so we think he's running with damage, and we're about to lap him over the coming lap or so. That's going to prove more difficult than it should, but we'll get to that when we approach him on the track. For the time being, I'm just looking to try and stick with the car ahead. And actually, at this stage of the race, what I'm thinking is, if we do have to pass this back marker, that might provide me with a bit of an opportunity, because if the car ahead catches him at the wrong part of the track, if he gets slowed down in any shape or form, then I might be able to squeeze past, or at a minimum, as the car that is being lapped gets out of the way, then hopefully I'll be able to follow the car ahead through, and I'll lose at least a minimum amount of time, and it might allow me to build a bit of a gap to the car behind. So important that when you approach a back marker, particularly this early on, when if he's being lapped at this stage, he's definitely got damage, that you are on your toes, and that you're alive to the fact that things could quite quickly go wrong, or that you have to respond to a situation very, very quickly. So he is catching the back marker now at a really challenging part of the circuit. You don't really want to be going past a slower car through those corners and into the chicane, but actually he's managed to make the best of it, and he's going to be ahead of him before the braking zone, which has now left us in a difficult position because we're coming out of that difficult chicane right behind him. I would hope that at this point the car ahead of us would get off the racing line and just slow down, but he doesn't. He actually looks to keep going with his pace. That forces us to the inside, which means I've got to get on the brakes late, and it slows us right down. He's now on our inside, actually mounted on the curbs. He didn't let go of that position at all, which, to be honest with you, I think is a little bit unfortunate. I get the fact that he must be frustrated that his race has gone the way that it has so early, but I don't think there's much of an excuse for holding that line through that set of corners. At this stage, I'm a bit grumpy about that. I'm feeling pretty annoyed, and in doing so, I miss my braking point completely. That's on me, that's my fault for not getting over that sooner, but it's a really costly mistake. I have to go through the gravel, and that's cost me at least one place, and now it's going to cost me a second position, as the driver who was a few seconds back is able to get his way past us as we've got dirty tyres, and I'm just not running quick enough into that corner to be able to resist him coming past us. So a really disappointing set of corners really, and of course I could say that, you know, the guy that we were lapping essentially kind of caused me to lose my concentration, but it's ultimately my responsibility to kind of get over that and get past it. And I'll be absolutely honest, I did just lose concentration going into that corner. I'd done, you know, 15-20 minutes worth of practice and the whole qualifying session, and that had never happened. But then in the middle of the race, as we were looking to try and challenge for the podium, it did take place, you know, it did happen, and that has cost us big time. So at this point, I'm all about now just thinking, okay, I've got to reset. I have to try and stick to the car ahead, as he's made a mistake coming out of the second part of the chicane, and that has given us a chance to get back past him way earlier than I thought we would have it. So that's given us a little bit of encouragement, at least, that actually all is not lost yet, and I can still see the two cars up ahead that we were challenging for position with, albeit I am going to have to make my way back past this back marker again, which I'm not looking forward to doing, because given the way he handled that situation first time round, I'm not expecting it to be particularly easy. But before we can even think about that, the car behind isn't going away anytime soon either. He's got a good run on us through the final corner and down the start-finish straight. He's going to challenge us again. He's got into our slipstream. He's going to take to the inside. We're going to run side by side through this corner. We give him the space he needs, but again, it's good racing. He's not forcing us off the track, but he does make his way past, which means we're now back down into 6th place. So this is turning into a really great scrap for position here. We're going to have to just try and stick close to him again. He's already made one mistake, so I think if we can just put a little bit of pressure on coming into this hairpin, maybe he'll make another. He's got the car up ahead to contend with as well, and he does run slightly wide there coming out, so we're going to get alongside him here and try and challenge into the next left-hander. If we can just hold to the inside here, we will have the high ground into the corner. We'll be able to force him wide. He gets off the gas a bit early, recognising that you can't run side by side through this corner, so we managed to take the place back. He's going to have a little look down the inside here. You can see him pulling alongside, but he nearly loses the back end of the car. Thankfully he holds it, because if we made contact there, then we were both going to be taken out pretty quickly. So we've managed to make that stick now. We come into the chicane. He brakes later than we do, but look at that, he gets it wrong and he's up onto the grass and he spins out. So that's a really costly mistake from the driver behind us there, and he's now going to have to try and recover. It gives us a bit of breathing space back to Sanchez behind us, and finally a bit of time where we can just regather and get our pace back together and start looking forward again after what has ultimately been quite a scrappy few laps. An enjoyable battle for position there, all good, clean, fair racing, but the only reason we were in that battle to begin with was because of some mistakes that I made, losing concentration and ultimately having to take to the gravel trap. So I need to make sure that in the final 5 minutes of this race, somehow we're into the final third of the race already, that I cut out those mistakes and try and make as much forward progress as I can. We're going to really close in here on the back marker. We've just had a much better run through that set of corners. Mercifully this time he does pull off the racing line and he is going to slow down into the braking zone, which means it's a much easier pass this time. Appreciate that at least this time around he's done that. And like I say, I don't want to dig the guy out too much because he's clearly running with a lot of damage, and he'll have been frustrated at that early point of the race. So at the end of the day, we've managed to make our way past much more straight in a much more straightforward manner the second time round, and it's all good stuff. We've got a gap of 5 seconds to the 2 cars up ahead. They're fighting for position really closely, so that's now going to be our target for the final set of laps in this race, to try and narrow that gap as much as we can. I'm not overly optimistic that without some sort of incident we'll be able to get right on the back of Broca up ahead, but at least it gives us something to aim for. If we can be clean and consistent through these last few laps, then we might be able to put a little bit of pressure on. I've fueled the car expecting that this will be about a 9-lap race. That was what the kind of race simulations in practice looked like. But before I say any more about that, look at that. There has been an incident up ahead. Broca is round. He's gone around challenging for position. We might have a run out of this final corner here to get back alongside him and make up 4th spot. We get a decent drive out of the corner. But look at that, he's got just as good power as we have, if not better. I think he's running a lower downforce setup here, so he's got more pace down the straights, and we're not going to get alongside him. We have to tuck back into his slipstream. Are we going to go to the right hand side or the left hand side? He sticks to the racing line, so we have a little look down the inside, but he's good on the brakes. He doesn't bottle that there into the corner at all. He holds a really good braking point in the racing line, so we're not able to challenge for that position. But we are now close enough that if he makes another mistake, or if we have a better run through a set of corners than he does, we will be able to make a challenge. However, as I was saying, I am conscious of my fuel levels at this point in the race. I decided to be quite aggressive. I anticipated it would be a 9-lap race, but of course the variable here is how quick do the GTR 1 class run around this track. They'll determine ultimately when the final lap is set, and so we're looking okay. I've been running in the highest engine mode possible throughout this race to try and maximise our pace, but you'll see in the left hand side of the screen over the next lap or so, I'm just adjusting that slightly because I am starting to get a little bit nervous that we'll be able to make it to the end of this race on the fuel that we've got in the car. And unfortunately, that will compromise us a little bit in terms of how closely we are able to stick to the rear wing of the car ahead. We do have another back marker up ahead. That isn't third place there. That is a back marker that we are approaching. So it doesn't look likely that we're going to be able to challenge for third place here, but we might have a chance of fourth if we're able to hold to our pace and if we're able to get our fuel tank to the end of this session. So we crossed the start finish straight, and I was sort of hoping and anticipating that that would be the final lap of this race. We come around the back marker here into the first corner. We very nearly make contact there, but he does get out of it just in time. He could have clipped our rear left tyre there and sent us round, but thankfully didn't. We do run wide though on exit to the corner, which has given Broca even more breathing space now. He's stretched that gap to 1.5 seconds. And at this stage of the race, I'm actually thinking with just this lap to go, it's very unlikely we're going to be able to close up the gap. And in fairness, although we did ultimately give up the fight early on because we made those mistakes, I don't think we would have had the pace to hold the two cars ahead of us behind over the race distance. I think I would have had to drive a kind of perfect race really in order to hold them behind. So it's going to be very difficult to close up this position here. And part of me at this stage was thinking about not making another mistake and kind of ultimately dropping further down the top 10, and maybe the best option at this point is just to bring the car home through the second half of this lap as we look to close out what would be a decent 5th place finish. I am though getting a little bit suspicious at this point that we haven't seen the notification on screen that we're coming to the end of the race now. This is the final lap, and actually what's dawning on me at this point is that we're going to have another racing lap, which is going to put us really marginal on fuel, because this is going to be a 10th racing lap essentially, and I had not expected that we would get 10 racing laps through this race. So I'm going to have to shift down now into a lower fuel mode if I'm going to make it to the end of the race distance. So far from challenging the car ahead, I'm now going to be running dramatically slower, at least for a big chunk of this lap, than Sanchez behind, and you will see he is really closing in on us already. So I'm not feeling that comfortable behind the wheel at the minute, I have to say. It's not looking great that we're going to be able to get to the end of the race on this fuel tank. So we're coming through into the middle part of the lap, and we're essentially running on fumes at the moment. If we're in engine mode 1, then it will hopefully mean that we'll get at least to the back end of the lap with a little bit of fuel left, and I'll be able to turn it up again for the final straight and hopefully hold this guy behind. We have had now confirmation that the GTR1 runners have finished the race, so this definitely is the final lap, thank goodness, because otherwise we were done. We were running out of fuel. I'm going to just slowly start trying to turn the engine map up because I am getting really concerned now. He's within 1 second of us behind. In fact, he's within 0.5 second of us behind as we had a little bit of a dodgy run through the chicane. We're up into engine mode 3 now. We've got a couple of litres of fuel left. I'm really now just got my fingers crossed, not literally, that we're going to be able to hold him behind, because look at that, he's basically on our rear bumper. I'm going to turn the fuel up now as we come down the start finish straight for the final time. We should have just enough to hold him behind, but it's going to be within 0.5 second. He closed up 2 seconds there in the final bit of the race, and we do make it over the line in 5th place in this race. So all in all, although it was a little bit scrappy, it was a really enjoyable race. I really enjoyed racing in these GTR2 cars. You know, they're as I say, a little bit like a raw and more alive GT3 car that you can really wrestle through the corners. Confirmation there of the Class A winner and the Class B winner, and the full race breakdown for the GTR1s. Here's the classification for GTR2, and that we finished in 5th place. I hope you've enjoyed the race. If you have, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any races we've got coming up in the future. And I will see you next time.